Have you ever, just stopped and thought about the power we all have locked away inside us?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it?
Yeah, and our source material today really digs into this. It argues that the most amazing power isn't like out there somewhere, but it's much closer. It's our own subconscious minds.
Exactly. And this deep dive, we're really going to explore what our source calls the master secret of the ages. The subconscious power, it claims, is, well, potentially bigger than atomic energy, even space travel.
Wow, bigger than atomic energy.
That's the claim. And the really interesting part, it's often the last place people look when they want to improve their lives or find solutions.
Okay, so this master secret, let's get into it. The plan for this deep dive is to pull out the main ideas about the subconscious from our source and maybe more importantly, figure out how you, listening, can actually start using this power.
Right, we're talking practical stuff. Things for, everyday problems, issues in business, even making relationships better.
So practical techniques.
That's the goal. We want to boil down the key takeaways, give you those aha moments, but without, making it overwhelming. Think of it as a direct line to understanding a really core part of yourself.
Okay, so where do we start? How do we even begin to understand this master secret?
Well, the source starts with a really fundamental distinction. It talks about two levels of the mind.
Right, the conscious and the subconscious.
Exactly. The conscious mind. That's your reasoning mind, the part that thinks, makes choices.
Yeah.
Deciding what to eat, planning your day, all that active stuff.
Okay, so like the captain of a ship, standing on the deck, figuring out the course, giving the orders based on what they see.
That's a great analogy the source uses. The conscious mind is the captain. And the subconscious, that's like the engine room crew.
Ah, okay, down below.
Yeah, they don't ask questions, they don't debate the orders,
Yeah.
they just execute powerfully, automatically. It's the subconscious that runs your breathing, your heartbeat, digestion, all the vital things you don't consciously think about.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The source says they're not actually two separate minds.
No, that's key. They're described as two spheres of activity within one mind, interconnected.
And the subconscious part, it's described as impersonal, non-selective. It just accepts whatever the conscious mind believes.
Precisely. That's a huge point. The subconscious doesn't argue or analyze.
Yeah.
It takes your conscious beliefs as its instructions, basically.
So that means we really need to be careful about what we're thinking.
Absolutely. There's a real responsibility there. Because whatever we consistently think, especially if there's strong feeling behind it, the subconscious starts working to make it real. So, positive thoughts, held consistently. That's what you want feeding into this powerful system.
Which brings us to suggestion, right? The power of suggestion.
Yeah.
The source talks about auto-suggestion, suggesting things to ourselves, and heterosuggestion, which comes from outside.
Yes. And a crucial point here is that your conscious mind, your reasoning mind, can reject suggestions. You can hear something and think, no, that's not right. But repeated suggestions, or suggestions given with a lot of emotion, or maybe when you're tired or distracted, those can sometimes slip past the conscious guard dog, as it were, and lodge directly in the subconscious.
And the negative stuff, heterosuggestion, especially things we picked up as kids or from society, parents, friends, even the media pushing fear and worry. That sounds like something we really need to watch out for.
It really does. But the flip side, the encouraging part, is constructive autosuggestion. We can use that to counteract the negative input.
How does that work exactly?
It's about consciously, deliberately choosing positive self-talk. Affirmations. It's almost like reprogramming your internal software with better instructions, actively feeding the subconscious what you want it to believe.
The source tells this really stark story, kind of grim, actually, about a man who died because he believed in negative prophecy.
Yeah, that's a powerful, though tragic illustration. It shows how deeply the subconscious acts on belief. The suggestion itself had no inherent power, but his acceptance of it, that gave it power over him.
Wow. Mind over matter in a really dark way.
But we can use that same principle for good. Look at the example of the young singer, terrified of performing, stage fright, the whole deal.
Yeah.
She apparently overcame it by consciously changing her internal script, replacing the fear thoughts with affirmations of confidence, of success on stage. That's autosuggestion right there.
So like telling yourself, I am calm, I am confident, I will perform well, over and over.
Exactly. Consistently feeding that positive message until the subconscious accepts it as the new reality. It's like, choosing which seeds to water in your mind. Eventually, those are the ones that grow strong.
And it's not just for things like stage fright, is it? The source mentions someone working on a bad temper.
Right. By repeatedly affirming things like, I am filled with good humor, happiness, love, understanding, it shows you can use this for real personal growth, changing ingrained patterns.
So consistently feeding the subconscious these positive instructions, we can actually reshape our reactions, our feelings, even our behavior.
That's the core idea. It takes persistence, but yes,
Yeah.
gradually reshaping those deep mental habits.
Now, another area the source really emphasizes is healing. It talks about scientific prayer. Okay, what does that mean? It sounds
It
different.
does sound a bit different, yeah. But the way the source explains it, it's about the conscious and subconscious minds working together harmoniously, directed towards a specific goal, like health.
So not just wishful thinking.
No, it's presented as more structured. The underlying principle is called the law of belief. Essentially, prayer therapy, in this view, combines your conscious desire for healing with a strong, unwavering belief that the subconscious can bring it about. The scientific part isn't about lab coats, it's about the deliberate, focused application of mind.
Okay, and it mentions faith healing too, like blind faith and subjective faith, and even absent treatment.
Right. These are presented as different ways to sort of release or activate the subconscious mind's healing power. The key seems to be conviction, that deep inner knowing or acceptance.
The historical examples are pretty wild. Dr. Esdaile using suggestion in surgery before germ theory was even a thing to prevent infection.
It's remarkable, isn't it? It really suggests a powerful mind-body connection that maybe we don't fully appreciate, even now. How our mental state influences physical outcomes.
And the healings at shrines, attributed to imagination and blind faith.
Yeah, the source links those two. The intense expectation, the unwavering belief of the person seeking healing that acts as a powerful command to their subconscious.
It's all about belief then.
Belief seems to be the critical factor. And look at the modern example cited.
Yeah.
The minister apparently overcoming lung cancer with affirmations of perfect health.
Right.
The radio listener focusing thoughts of wholeness on her mother, who then recovered from thrombosis.
Hmm.
The psychologist healing his own tuberculosis through affirmations.
These are pretty compelling stories.
They are. And the source goes quite far, suggesting that disease often originates in the mind, that even physical symptoms can be induced by hypnosis.
Wow. So the core message is there's this one fundamental healing power inside us, the subconscious.
That seems to be the central assertion. The subconscious mind holds the blueprint for health, and our thoughts and beliefs can either block or facilitate its work.
But hang on, if disease starts in the mind, does that mean we, consciously choose to get sick? That seems harsh.
That's a really important clarification. No, the source isn't saying we consciously decide, I think I'll get the flu today. It's more about how chronic negative thinking, fear, resentment, guilt, these states can, over time, disrupt the body's natural harmony and make us more susceptible to illness.
Okay, so it's not about blame, but about the impact of our mental state.
Exactly. The practical takeaway isn't guilt, it's empowerment. Cultivating a positive mental and emotional state is presented as a vital part of staying healthy and recovering from illness, alongside, of course, sensible living and appropriate medical care when needed.
Right, makes sense. Okay, moving on from physical health, happiness. The source talks about using the subconscious for happiness, and the first point seems almost too simple. Happiness is a choice.
Deceptively simple, yes. And crucially, it's also a habit we can cultivate.
A habit? How so?
Think about the farmer mentioned in the source. Every morning, every night, consciously practicing gratitude, blessing his life. That repetition, that consistent focus on the positive, it trains the subconscious. It becomes the default setting, leading to a generally happier disposition.
But the source also mentions some people might actually resist happiness because they're so used to being unhappy.
It sounds strange, but yeah, sometimes negative patterns get so ingrained, happiness feels unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable or unsafe. Our identity can get wrapped up in our struggles.
So how do you break that cycle?
By consciously choosing happiness day by day. Using affirmations is suggested. Things like affirming divine order, guidance, love, success in your life. Deliberately focusing your thoughts on the positive outcomes you desire.
Like retraining your focus.
Exactly. And there's that story of the unhappy general manager.
Oh yeah, the one who turned his business around.
Right. By consciously affirming positive things about his colleagues, radiating peace and goodwill. Apparently, it transformed the whole atmosphere and the business results.
So our inner state really can ripple outwards.
It powerfully suggests so. Our internal world shapes our external experience more than we often realize.
Okay, let's talk relationships. Harmonious human relations. The source makes a really interesting point right off the bat. It's not what people say or do, it's our reaction that matters most.
That's huge, isn't it? It puts
Yeah.
the power back in our hands. We can't control others, but we can control our response.
Like the guy with the morning tantrums, who learned to manage his reactions.
Yeah, that story illustrates it perfectly. It shows we don't have to be slaves to our emotional triggers. We can choose a different response.
And overcoming negative feelings towards others, like that secretary who disliked other women. The path seems to be, again, conscious affirmation, love, peace, tolerance.
It keeps coming back to actively cultivating the inner state you want, doesn't it? Our thoughts and feelings filter how we see and interact with everyone.
Yeah. And the salesman who resented his boss. And it affected his career.
Uh-huh. Until he changed his inner conversation about his manager, he was subconsciously sabotaging himself. Changing the thought pattern changed the outcome,
The source mentions empathy here too, imagining yourself in someone else's shoes, seeing their perspective.
which ties into the golden rule, viewed psychologically.
Yeah.
The idea is what you consistently think and feel about others. That's what you tend to draw into your own life, like a track's eye, mentally and emotionally.
A kind of mirror effect.
You could say that. And even in marriage, the advice is similar. Focus mentally on your partner's best qualities. Radiate love and goodwill towards them, rather than trying to nag or force them to change.
Focus on the ideal, nurture that internally.
Exactly. Internal shifts seem to create a better space for external positive changes than direct pressure does.
Forgiveness is another big one the source tackles. It says, life itself, or God, is harmonious and constantly forgiving.
Right. And our negative thinking, our grudges, resentment, they act like dams, blocking that natural flow of harmony and healing in our own lives.
So suffering isn't punishment from above. It's more like the consequence of going against these natural laws, misusing them.
That's the perspective offered, yes. It reframes suffering as a result of internal misalignment rather than external judgment.
The story about the workaholic driven by guilt, needing self-forgiveness, that really hits home. How often do we carry burdens like that?
It's very common, I think. And the source suggests that understanding why people act the way they do, their own fears, insecurities, conditioning, can lead to compassion. And from compassion, it's easier to genuinely wish them well, which is a key part of forgiveness.
Right, right. And the person left at the altar, choosing faith instead of bitterness. That takes incredible strength, but the source implies it's crucial for your own future happiness.
Absolutely. Holding on to bitterness primarily hurts the person holding it. Letting go, choosing a positive focus, frees you.
And that other story, the young woman with the really negative mother, who broke free by changing her beliefs and visualizing her ideal partner.
That's another powerful example of rewriting the internal script. She refused to let her past conditioning dictate her future. She consciously created a new mental blueprint, and reality eventually matched it.
So the message is really clear. Our thoughts and feelings create our destiny. It's not primarily about external circumstances.
That's the core message. And the practical steps for forgiveness, like consciously wishing blessings on the person who hurt you repeatedly until the negative feeling fades.
Yeah, that sounds challenging, but practical.
It's an active process. It's about neutralizing that negative emotional charge so it no longer controls you, freeing up your energy for better things.
Okay, what about bad habits? The source uses alcoholism as a key example, framing habits as these deep subconscious patterns.
Yes, and the story of the man overcoming alcoholism is quite striking. He didn't just fight the urge, he focused intensely on his desired outcome.
Being home with his family, happy and sober.
Exactly. He used vivid visualization, feeling the reality of that desired state, to essentially recondition his subconscious mind away from the addiction.
The source calls them 3 magic steps, right? Stillness, visualization, and feeling the reality.
Yes, get quiet, clearly picture the end result you want, and then immerse yourself in the feeling of having already achieved it. It sounds simple, but the consistent application is powerful.
And it links alcoholism back to negative thinking again, inferiority, frustration.
It suggests those are often the underlying roots. So the cure involves not just stopping the drinking, but changing the underlying thought patterns, thinking of freedom, sobriety, self-worth, building a new mental foundation.
Fear. The source calls it man's greatest enemy, a thought that underlies failure, sickness, bad relationships.
Wow. It's a strong statement, but think about how much fear can hold us back. And the source points out, often our fears aren't even real.
Like the kid afraid of the boogeyman.
Exactly. It exists only in the imagination. So many of our adult fears are like that too, just mental projections.
So overcoming things like stage fright again or fear of exams,
Yeah.
it comes back to replacing the fear thoughts with positive autosuggestion, visualizing success.
Yes, actively rehearsing success mentally. For exams, it mentions overcoming suggestive amnesia, where fear makes you blank out by focusing on success and imagining the positive outcome.
And specific phobias, like fear of water or heights.
Same principle, essentially. Mentally confronting the fear, but with a new attitude of mastery. Visualizing yourself swimming confidently or enjoying the view from a high place, feeling calm and in control. Repeatedly.
It distinguishes between normal fear, like, seeing a bear, and abnormal fear.
Right. Normal fear is protective. Abnormal fear is when the imagination goes wild, creating anxieties about things that are unlikely or out of proportion, like the woman obsessed with plane crashes, or the businessman consumed by fear of failure, even when things are okay.
And the answer to that abnormal fear.
Is to deliberately focus your mind on the opposite of what you fear, trusting that your subconscious, when fed with positive expectations, will support you. Displace the fear with faith in a good outcome.
So the steps to freedom are pretty concrete. Do the thing you fear. Replace negative thoughts. Focus on good things. Keep your mind on your desired outcome.
It's an active conscious strategy. Take
Mhm.
control of your thinking. Don't let fear run the show.
It's a proactive stance.
Definitely. You're not just passively hoping fear goes away. You're actively dismantling it.
Okay, finally, let's touch on aging. The source really pushes back against the negative way society often views getting older.
It really does. It emphasizes that age can bring assets, wisdom, experience, emotional maturity. It doesn't have to be about decline.
And it lists all these accomplished older people: Hoover, Socrates, Michelangelo.
Right. To make the point that the mind itself doesn't necessarily age or weaken. Our creative and intellectual capacities can remain strong, even grow throughout life.
So we're encouraged to just reject the negative propaganda about getting old.
Pretty much. And instead actively cultivate a vision of ourselves as vital, happy, contributing, powerful, regardless of chronological age. Because back to that idea,
Mm.
you are as young as you think you are.
Your internal state dictating your experience again.
Yeah, exactly. And retirement. It's framed not as an end, but as a potential new beginning. A chance to pursue passions, learn new things, grow.
So true youth isn't about the calendar. It's about keeping your mind filled with life's truths and radiating love.
That's the essence of it. Maintaining a forward-looking, engaged, positive mindset is key to vitality at any age.
So wrapping this all up,
Mm.
if we had to boil down the core message from this deep dive.
I'd say it's this. Your subconscious mind is incredibly powerful, and it responds directly to your habitual thoughts and your deepest beliefs. It's like fertile soil. It will grow whatever seeds you plant.
And by understanding how it works, using these practical techniques we've talked about, affirmations, visualization, choosing our reactions, we can actually consciously shape our reality.
That's the potential being offered, yes.
Mm.
More happiness, better health, richer relationships. It starts with consciously directing this inner power.
And hopefully this conversation, this deep dive, has given you, our listener, a good handle on these ideas, maybe some surprising insights, some practical steps, without being too much all at once.
But really encourage you to just, sit with these ideas, reflect on them, think about how you could start, even in small ways, to more consciously guide your own subconscious mind, starting today.
Yeah. And maybe we can leave you with this final thought to chew on. This amazing miracle working power. It's right there inside you. So what are you going to choose to impress upon it today?
It's a powerful question, and definitely worth exploring further, both in the source material and in your own life.